was interesting. You said this the other day, something about what if Saturn controls the sun?
Mm-hmm.
Because from a perspective point of view now, you have to have a decent telescope to see the rings. And then the sun is obviously blazing in our face every single day. And so from a perspective, it's like, gee, it doesn't look as powerful. It doesn't look as big. But the underlying power of Saturn, it's the balancer. It's the nexus. It's the equalizer. The root of this solar system, keeping everything in order.
Yeah,
Wow.
dude, totally. That feels right. I'm getting like soul tingles right now. There's something about that that rings true. And it's something about the sun and definitely the moon and most certainly Saturn, all of them working together. They're all like cogs in this giant machine that Earth is being subjected to in some way. The question is why and what's actually happening.
All right, so as you can see, I'm almost out. This is an MCT8 coconut oil mix that I get from ketoathlete.com. I get a 51% discount and free shipping in the US for clicking the link specific. And what it does is it helps boost your metabolism. It helps put you into that ketogenic state. Once again, it's an MCT8 coconut oil mix. I have completely replaced the sugar with my coffee. I don't put sugar in my coffee anymore. I just put a scoop of this. It tastes great. And also, if you've read some of the side effects that sugar is linked to, it might scare you away from sugar. I've also got a friend in the UK that's lost over 70 pounds, eating right, exercising, and taking this keto from ketoathlete.com. I've read many comments in the comment section about how it's helped people with their diets and their lifestyle. And I think you should get some. And I think you'll thank me later. So go to ketoathlete.com, get your discount, and be the change you want to see, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rex Bear, reporting to you live in a garage down by the river. This is what we're going to talk about today. This is a big deal. And Jen, you kind of inspired me. So like we were talking a bunch about life paths, and then you have done an incredible job with these write-ups on people where you've got different, what do you call them?
This is not my creation, Rex.
But what
Human
is it?
design is something that is a culmination of many different modalities and
Yeah.
philosophies throughout the ages, and I am only scratching the surface. This is a recent endeavor of mine, but yeah, there's a lot to uncover.
Well, so what I noticed is different about it though is it seems to have like your body basically outlined, and then you'll take somebody's birth time and location and connect it to this human design chart where you're showing what they're, I don't know, like what they're good at, what they need to work on, what their natural abilities are. But I've had readings before, and it seems to be quite a bit different. Like, I've had a couple people do incredible readings for me, but I've never had anything quite like what you do with this human design chart. So that's what I thought was interesting about it. How long has it been out?
It's really recent. I believe it's like 1987 when, all right, this guy has like a real like white bready name. I don't know his like actual human avatar name that he was born with, but he was known after he channeled the understanding of human design. His name is Ra Uru. You can look him up, you can look up human design, and you will find a plethora of knowledge. But what's really amazing about this modality, Rex, is that it is an incorporation of so many other modalities throughout the ages and also of modern contemporary times. It brings in perspectives of like the chakra system of the Far East. It brings in numerology and astrology. You can find everything about like your sun, your moon, all of the different planets are all represented in that one body graph that you're referencing. But it also incorporates new ideas that have to do with like DNA and genetics and energetics, such as is discussed in, quantum mechanics. It is a compilation of all of these differing philosophies kind of woven together into this really beautiful sequencing about what it means to be a human avatar on planet Earth and the energy that we are all experiencing simultaneously together, as well as how it interacts with others' energetics and their field of influence. So it's just fascinating. And everything that I've read about your chart, about my chart, about so many people's charts recently has just been, it's been this catapult of inspiration. It's like one thing leads to another. And I haven't wanted to jump and dive into a rabbit hole this deep in quite some time.
I just found him, and he's got like 4.8 out of 5 stars out of almost 900 reviews on his book, The Definitive Book of Human Design, The Science of Differation. And so essentially you have taken that information and incorporated it, and then you help people by doing charts. And one of the things that I was going to say is when we talked and you were sharing with me some information about my chart, it really inspired me to get back into the deep thought whiteboard sessions. And you were explaining to me like certain parts of my intuition connect. How do you, like a 6'3" or something, or 6'2"? What were you saying about that?
You're a 6'2" profile line, and I am a 6'3" profile line.
Okay.
And we share that in common, that 6 profile line being the part of our I believe it's the part of our personality. The first number is that which is representative to the world, the energy that we are representing to the world, the way the world sees us, kind of like your sun sign. You can liken it to that. And then the second number is, I mean, it's still very much a part of who it is that you are, but it's more of like your internal how it is that you are more of on a subconscious level. Kind of, you could liken it to that of the moon sign in astrology.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were mentioning things about the intuition of a 6'2" connected to certain like body parts even.
Yes. This is where the chakra system comes into play. And you have an incredibly divine splenic center. And you have 2 really prominent channels branching off of that splenic center straight to your throat center. And the centers, I mean, I could go on and on about what the centers, each and one of them represent, but it's very similar in alignment with that of the chakras. So if you have some knowledge of the chakras, but the splenic center is a little bit different in that it represents the deepest, most primordial form of intuition, like the kind of intuition that we as animals have to have in order to survive, right, in the earthen landscape. And so it's very much off the cuff. It's very much like on the go. Not a lot of forethought or comprehending after. You get these downloads immediately that you are intended to act upon. And that is very prominent in your chart. And I have noticed that in the way that you work, I mean, does that line up for you? Does that resonate?
Pure spontaneous combustion? Yes. Absolutely. Like we've talked about this just before the show. You said I drive you crazy because I'm so spontaneous. Yet that's the only thing I know. Try and put me in order, and no, I got to have chaos out of order, which equals order, actually. It's weird how that works, but it's so true. And that's why I was so fascinated when you did that chart for me. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Maybe that's why something will come into my mind and I'll feel it through the gut, like a gut intuition, and I immediately act on it. And if I don't, sometimes I will be like, oh, I should have done that at that time. So yeah, I love this human design thing. I think it's fascinating because especially the way you read the design to people, I think you're really good at it. I think you're natural at it. And so that's one of the things that I was thinking about, Jen, is the chakras. And how do so the chakras are connected to the planets, and we are connected to the planets. And most religions originate from the planets and the stars and the constellations and the battles that were taking place in the heavens, most likely from planetary bodies that were breaking orbit, asteroids, comets, aurora borealis, intense weather, stuff like that. So then the question is, like, what is a chakra? And why is a chakra represented by a planet? And how do we have that connection? Like, How are we all
Goodness
connected like that?
gracious. Oh, you're making my wheels turn early in the morning here, Rex. Give me a
Coffee.
second while I
I
I
put some keto in this coffee, by the way, which is amazing.
yeah.
KetoWithLeak.com. Shameless
Mm.
plug. You should be drinking keto right now with
I
your
am, well, not keto. I'm, what is it called? I got it off your site. It's
collagen.
yeah, I love
Nice.
the collagen.
Oh,
It's
me too.
great stuff.
Me too. I got single packs of this collagen now, and they're like single packs that I dump in to water. I mix it up real quick and drink it. But talk about recovery time. Like the recovery time, if you exercise or if you're around a lot of sunlight, I've noticed that the
Mm,
collagen helps with recovery times for me and with the amount of sunlight. And you're in Texas. Like speaking of
yes.
sunlight state.
I got sunstroked this past weekend and I had to curl up in a dark room for like literal 24 hours because it's just like this saturation of light, and especially being so close to the summer solstice. I mean, we're only just a few days out from that. That is like the peakiest point of the sunlight, penetrating our field here in on the surface. And it's yeah, it's insane. There's a lot that happens with respect to that. There's a lot that speeds up, and there's a whole lot that it catalyzes, and in your everyone's orbit is subjected to these. I mean, some will call them light codes. It's energy is what it is. That's all sunlight is. But if we have an infusion of too much energy, like some of us have higher thresholds for that. I think you would qualify, Rex, that your threshold for like an abundance of energetic flow coming through, you have that makeup, that blueprint, so to speak, that can handle that, whereas others not so much. And so yeah, it's what you ask about the planets though with respect to the chakras. I mean, I'd have to pull up some kind of a diagram. I know that there is a sequencing. I know that there is a comparison between them. But what's really interesting, I have like written down over here after our talk, you were asking these questions about how we were like, so is Earth a simulation? Like it feels like we're in a simulation, right? On Earth. And is that going to branch off? Does it also apply to the other planets if that's the case? And then you, my friend, take it to that next level and you're like, well, is it a galaxy thing, a universe thing? And it's like, I don't know, man. Like you are asking me all these questions, but it does inspire me to go into some deep dives and see how it is, all the ways that human design, it really does connect to everything. And that's why it lights me up.
Absolutely. And as you're talking, I was pulling up some charts that could show the different chakras and their connections to the planets. And there's some different representations. So, maybe
Show
kind
us
of
a screenshot. Let me see.
the crown chakra is above. Like this is what's fascinating. If you look at these chakras, you can actually see your chakras with a Kirlian camera. You can take a Kirlian photograph of somebody and you will see their chakras and you will see the aura that they emit. Certain people have more refined chakras than others. And the ancients knew this. Thousands of years ago, they knew what these looked like and they documented it. And you can scientifically prove that specific lights or specific colors have different vibrations, whereas the lower vibration is going to be like red and the higher vibration is going to be purple. And then you have ultraviolet. And
Right.
so how
And
did they know this?
infrared also.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did they know this without
Mm.
technology, unless they could see it with their eyes because they were in tune to do so, or like their
That's
third
a
eye?
really great question. That's a great question. I mean, honestly, how did they know, like, how did they know to build, or why would they have built all of those, what did you and Diamond call them? The geoglyphs?
Yeah.
Why would they have built that if someone wasn't looking at it from above? And if it was built prehistorically, why, like, and we didn't have the technology of helicopters and planes and so forth and whatnot, like, why would they have built it way up there where you can only see these pictures from an aerial view? I mean, there's questions like this that are abounding all over. Like, how in the world were the pyramids built? How in the world is any of this happening? These mounds out in Newark that they have, this precision down to a T of this octagon with perfect sides, when apparently they had no knowledge of mathematics, like in the ways that we have recently. I mean, I remember learning about that in one of my anthropology classes, and my professor was like, we would struggle with creating this today, like same way we would struggle with creating the pyramids today. How is it that the Dogon tribe of Africa actually knew that there was a Sirius, I believe it was a Sirius B and a Sirius C star that are not visible to the naked eye? And they knew this like hundreds of years before any kind of telescope was ever constructed. So these are questions that, yeah, it's becoming a lot more mainstream to ask these kinds of questions. It's not being looped into this conspiracy theory grab bag that they've been discounting, the collective has been discounting for quite some time. But it's, and it's becoming more okay and acceptable to be asking these questions because we don't have definitive answers.
Right, right. And if you've ever had an out-of-body experience, then that could explain certain geoglyphs, and the natives would build them. They would have these out-of-body experiences, be able to see them. And then there's the possibility of it going back to a point also when you brought up Sirius, were the Dogon people visited by a civilization from Sirius? I believe so. Just if you look at the stuff in Egypt as well that connects to Sirius. And I want to check this out. I did find something that could connect the chakras. So here we go. I always thought the first chakra would have been Mars, but as you can see in this
Earth, it's the root. That makes sense.
Well, yeah, but guess what they're saying the root is? They're saying Saturn.
Oh, that's even more interesting, isn't it?
It is. It is. So let's take a look at this. The first chakra would be the planet Saturn, the color red, and the day Saturday, obviously. The second chakra, which is to have Earth, The second chakra to fill water. The planet would be the moon, the color orange, and the day, obviously Monday, moon day. The third chakra would be to act, fire, the solar plexus, Mars, yellow, Tuesday, and get competitive, be the first to make a move. That's kind of some of the attributes. And then the fourth chakra would, really interesting, because when I had I've had 2 Kirlian photographs taken, and both of them that was like hardcore root chakra. Like the whole image, I've still got them. You can on my other computer. The whole image is filled with this dark burgundy emitting from my root chakra. And then my friend that had hers taken, you could see the actual individual chakras going up the body, and you didn't see you could see the different colors. And I always thought that was connected to Mars, but I guess I have a strong connection with Saturn because, wow, that's interesting. Okay, so the third chakra would be Mars. The fourth chakra would be air, to accept. Venus, green, Friday. And then the fifth chakra would be the throat, to express sound. Mercury, blue, Wednesday. Sixth chakra would be, which is pretty cool. That makes sense. Mercury being the closest to the sun, rotating the closest to the sun, being the fastest planet rotating the sun, having the most knowledge, like Hermes Trismegistus, because it is closest to the sun. And then the sixth chakra to see light, Jupiter, daydreams, visualizations, manifestations. You've got a strong connection to Jupiter, I'll bet.
I do. And I was just about to say, I have a defined ajna, which is the equivalent in human design to the third eye. And I have visions in the dreamscape and otherwise. And definitely, I love that it is the planet Jupiter that is giving me so many downloads right now. It's interesting.
Jupiter's awesome. Jupiter, if you got Jupiter in your chart, I don't do star charts, but what I've heard is if you have a lot of, I think you told me this, if you got Jupiter in your chart a lot, then You're always like, yeah, things are great. There's plenty of abundance. We got this. Don't worry about it. But sometimes you may need a little Saturn in there to kind of balance things out because you're just like, I got so much. It's bountiful, plentiful. Yay. Right. And Saturn's like, wait a second. Chill out. Finite. You need some structure.
Especially considering what we were talking about with respect to Saturn and
Yeah.
why it is interesting, and the fact that it would be the root, it really piques my interest. The fact that it would be associated with the first chakra that, you know, I've really felt for a while, since I've done my own deep dives into cosmology and learned about the cult of Saturn from a myriad of different perspectives, that there is something there. There is definitely something there. Now, whether or not it is, you know, all of the doom and gloom and how it's been portrayed, that's another thing entirely. And I do try to keep an open mind. But all of that being said, if you look at the rings of Saturn, which, by the way, there's rings, new rings showing up all the time around Saturn and around Uranus that did not used to have rings, right? Like, what's going on here? Like, where
Beavis.
are they coming from?
Beavis, get those rings. All right.
Oh my God.
Anal bleaching. It's on sale.
Seriously,
Just ask the
Rick.
politicians. They have special prices for politicians and anal bleaching. Will you get the rings off of this for me, please? We can write it off. You remember that? Yes, I was talking to the doctors. It was so bad. But there was news about it. They're like, the politicians have been spending your tax dollars on bleaching their anus. True story. I'm not
you
even
for that.
Dorg. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Pretty weird. But then, yeah, what do you expect?
They kind of look like, tell me if this resonates with you. Don't they kind of look, all right, you know, the old vinyl records, right? We're both kind of music buffs, like oldies music. Like, I grew up listening to my daddy play like Stevie Ray Vaughan and, you know, all the greats. But they look like, if you looked at the rings of Saturn from like a macroscopic perspective, it looks like the rings on a vinyl record,
100%.
which is a way of collecting and storing information, is it not?
As well as emitting. You put a power signal off of that, it emits into the universe like a record. You're playing a record. This
Snap.
is a massive planetary record. But here's the other question. If there is a Birkeland current going into Saturn, and these rings are actually harnessing that energy and amplifying that energy, and then it's bouncing off of the moon somehow, and it's kind of creating this physical carbon matrix that we are in, it's as if they were all placed there specifically. And then was it placed there by design, by the universal order, which is design, or by aliens? I don't know.
I want you to ask Mark Lerner whenever you meet with him next.
In 15 minutes, actually.
In 15 minutes?
Yeah, we're supposed to meet at 10. I pushed it back 15 minutes. So yeah. What should I ask?
Good. It'll be fresh on your mind then. Honestly, it's something that is it's worth a look. It's worth a second look, and some more questions with respect to how big the Earth is versus how big the moon is versus how big the sun is, and how whenever they all come into an alignment with an eclipse, it lines up perfectly so that, you know, it's like with the lunar eclipse, keep me on track here. One of them completely blocks out the sun, right? Whereas the other completely blocks out the moon. And this would not be possible if they were not the exact sizes, like the distance is the same as their size. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, this feels very engineered to me. And whenever we consider all of what we know about the cult of Saturn and what is being shared with us there, and how it feels like Saturn is like a major mainframe of it, like a headquarters almost, it feels like. And then it's the question of whether or not Earth is the only one being subjected to this because of the hot spot that is the moon, floating around, only showing us one face of it. I mean, it's worth a second glance and to scratch the surface, right?
Absolutely. And when you said, this was interesting, you said this the other day, something about what if Saturn controls the sun?
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting because from a perspective point of view now, you have to have a super high power you have to have a nice telescope to see the rings of Saturn. You don't have to have a super high powered one, but you have to have a decent telescope to see the rings. And then the sun is obviously blazing in our face every single day, like right there. And so from a perspective, it's like, gee, it doesn't look as powerful. It doesn't look as big. But the underlying power of Saturn is, it's the balancer. It's the nexus. It's the equalizer. It's the order out of this chaos. Like it is the root of this solar system, keeping everything in order in a cyclical fashion. And it's almost like it's connected to the sun, giving the sun its glory. Huh.
Yeah,
Wow.
dude. Totally. That feels right. I'm getting like soul tingles right now just hearing you talk about that. That's that there's something about that rings true. And I know that there's a lot of texts, and I know that you've met with people on your podcast that have talked about the sun in the way that it is positioned in our sky, and how it wasn't always like that. Maybe there was another planetary body that was actually acting as our sun, and perhaps this was a more organic cosmological feature of our galaxy, right? And it's something about the sun, and definitely the moon, and most certainly Saturn, all of them working together. They're all like cogs in this giant machine that Earth is being subjected to in some way. The question is why and what's actually happening.
I'm trying to write this down as you're talking because I want to use that as a Saturn and Earth in the galactic machine. What did you say? How did you?
Aren't you
that was like
recording
perfect.
this?
That was awesome clickbait title.
Awesome.
But it's true, but it's like clickbait.
So happy
time,
to
right?
help
Like,
with that.
artificial intelligence. What's the best clickbait title we can get? Wow, this was fun. See, isn't it great to just do a spontaneous podcast, Jen?
It is. It's been fun. You are definitely igniting a different perspective in me so that I can fly by the seat of my pants too. I think I'm doing all right.
You need to do that. The undesirables. And Jen, let's finish this up on a positive note.
Yeah? You got something for me?
You're supposed to say something positive. I put you on the spot. Now, can somebody get a reading with you?
Sure. It's not going to be I mean, you and I, we're both curators, Rex.
Yes.
We both pull from so many different resources and different perspectives, and we entertain a whole bunch of different schools of thought. And so, anyone who gets a reading with me is not just going to get a human design reading. That's just not the way I roll. Like, they're going to get an entire, they're going to get a holistic perspective from a lot of different modalities and philosophies and teachings from a myriad of different perspectives that I have kind of accumulated along the way. But yeah, I'll drop my link with you so that you can book a sync sesh if that is something that speaks to you. I'd love to look into your energy field, and I'd love to sync up with your spiritual atmosphere and share with you all of the downloads that come through.
Ladies and gentlemen, awesome news. Wanted to remind you, July 29th, it's going to be a Saturday, 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Central Time. We're going to have an awesome event. It's going to be limited, very limited, and you have the opportunity, because you know about it first, to be at this event. Would you like to have a human design chart read? Would you like to talk to Jen and myself live? Maybe you have a question. Well, check us out. Jen, share with the audience what you would like to share in this event, because I am really looking forward to this, and we have it on the calendar, folks. Be there.
So we're going to go over all of the different types that there are in human design. There are generators. Manifesting generators is a subtype of generator. There's manifestors, there's reflectors, projectors, and we'll even touch on what the new type is going to be after the new incarnation cross comes into play in 2027. There's going to be an entirely new type, similar to how in 1776, prior to that time, there was no such thing as a projector. But I guarantee you there's going to be projectors in the room. We're going to get to dive deep into what each of these different types mean and how it is that you, as the type in which you are, can be living your best life according to your design. And it's going to be epic. I can't wait.
YouTube channel?
Yeah, definitely. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's ZenJen, Queen of Sync, Collective Connections. And I'm interviewing a whole lot of really amazing people on there, just like you are, so that we can kind of bridge the gaps and bring all of these holistic perspectives into one comprehensive message, because that's where we're headed in this paradigm shift for humanity. Is we're bringing it all together so that we can gain some actual understanding rather than a whole bunch of floating islands of information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. And can I share with the audience that you're actually a Viking warrior princess from the era of the Vikings as well?
You share what you feel called to share, my dear.
Folks, have you seen Vikings? Where do you think they came up with that idea? I'm just saying. Jen wrote the book.
You're
So
such a goofball.
Zorgs. You made me say it. Jen, you're awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And this is a great conversation. So we will do it again, I'm sure.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Rex. I've just had the time of my life with it.
Right on. I paid her to say that, ladies and gentlemen. Be the change you want to see. Checks in the mail.